Dragon's Dead. I'm your host, SinDragonLord. Welcome to Top 8 of the Season 11 of the Global Pokemon Society Draft League. Our opponent today in Top 8 in the playoffs will be the Buffalo Bidoofs, who scratched and clawed their way up to Top 8, knocking the semi-winning Sears out of their Top 8's placement in Week 10 of the regular season. So congratulations to them. But now we're back with the Magearna team, and so all season long, they didn't really use the Demon Magearna with like Calm Mind, Shift Gear, Draining Kiss, Stored Power, that kind of shenanigans. They didn't use that set at all. But in Week 10 against Simi, they did. So now, I have to imagine they might be trying to use that set again. So then we also have to deal with the Dragapult, the Ditto, which is always a nuisance. Ditto by far is the MVP for them this season in regards to KOs. Just the best revenge killer. There's nothing really much that could be said about that. Lucario's Sableye, Necrozma, Blastoise, Magearna, Hitmontop, Alolan Raichu, and Dusclops. The latter three he has never brought, but alas, he still made the top 8 despite only bringing 7 of the 10 that he was allowed. So without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get into what we're going to be bringing. Okay, so first things first, we've got Cetitan. So setting up Cetitan for this game is going to be a little tricky because we have to ensure that Ditto is no longer a problem before we go ahead and what did I say? Oh, before we set up with Cetitan, because the last thing we need is a Choice Scarf, Belly Drum boosted imposter Cetitan trying to ruin our day. We will not be living by the moniker of the Cetitan giveth, the Cetitan taketh away. But we have Terrifier because we don't want to get ruined by Prankster Will-O-Wisp. Potentially, it was either Terrifier or Terra Steel. I decided on Fire. Even though Terra Steel is better into the Magearna, Terrifier just is better overall. And outside of that, it's actually pretty decent to the rest of his team. Just Ice in general is pretty solid to the team in general. Not a whole lot of resist. I think Magearna and Blastoise are kind of the only resists, but Earthquake handles the Magearna, and then Blastoise. I mean, if it Terras, perfect. If not, then we'll just see how much Earthquake does. We have enough speed to outspeed Dragapult in the snow. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. To outspeed Dragapult in the snow. That obviously does not count for if Dragapult is going to be Scarfed, but we have no shot at outspeeding that anyway, so no sense in prepping for that. And if it is, we can just use Ice Shard. We do have that priority for that reason, just in case on the off chance that we do come across something that is faster but more frail. Then we got Le Croc and Roll, the Skeledirge, our spin blocker, our unaware sweeper, and just an overall nuisance. Most of the games that it has come to, it has wreaked absolute havoc, and I actually anticipated doing more of the same here, because actually Skeledirge does marvelously into the entire team, barring like Blastoise and Dragapult. And Dragapult, I guess, but yeah, Skeledirge, I anticipate will be doing a lot of work. So the reason I'm going Hex over Shadow Ball is just because I do have a lot of status spreading in this week's lineup. We have not gotten to those yet, but we will. Including Skeledirge himself. And if Ditto does copy the Skeledirge, Hex will be weaker than Shadow Ball would be. So it's basically, it's got the potential to be stronger for us, but it's a weaker stab option for them if they should happen to copy it. And then also it's really good into Ditto regardless, just because even if he copies the boosts, Skeledirge will be unaware of it, and we will win the PP war. And Ditto's HP is significantly lower than Skeledirge's, so we will win that 1v1 regardless. So it is what it is, but it's a really good check into basically the entire team. And then we got Great Tusk at home, Donphan. We're running the Custap set once again, just because we can potentially catch a setup sweeper. You know, knocking us down to Sturdy, then we go Endeavor. They can't swap out because the rocks are up, which, by the way, outside of Blastoise, he has no way of removing them, but he doesn't use Blastoise for spinning. He typically has used it for Shell Smash sweeping. So, with that being said, if we get the Pokemon that's trying to sweep down to 1 HP while rocks are up, they can't switch, and Ice Shard from Titan can pick it off, or any of my mons who are faster can pick it off from range, and that's a really good way for Donphan to, support its team by getting rid of a crucial threat. And then we got the Iron Bundle. We haven't brought it too much this season, but I figured it would be really good this week, just because, for one thing, Freeze Dry into Blastoise basically either means we force it to tear it immediately, or we can taunt it, that way it can't set up Shell Smashes, and then either way we bait out the Terra early. That way we know what we're dealing with as soon as possible. So Iron Bundle is not a terrible lead. I did consider swapping Booster Energy for something else, just because if it is going to be a lead, I wouldn't want to waste the Booster Energy right away. But we'll come to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But Freeze Dry, Ice Beam, Taunt, Hydro Pump seems pretty standard. And then, in lieu of Ninetales this week, we're gonna go Krampus. We're going Grimmsnarl as our screen setter with Reflect, Light Screen, Thunder Wave, and Spirit Break. And we're actually going Adamant this week with 252 HP, 168 attack, and the rest in special defense. The reason for this is because in a situation where we are 1v1ing the Sableye, I wanted Spirit Break to be able to guarantee a one-shot because we naturally outspeed. We are immune to Sableye's Prankster moves just because of our Dark typing, and we have the edge 1v1 just because Spirit Break does deal super effective damage on Sableye, and with this spread, it guarantees a one-hit KO. So yeah, that's about it for that, and we have Thunder Wave, which pairs nicely with the Skeledirge as well, and we can paralyze things like the Dragapult, which Grimmsnarl also handles very easily as well, being resistant or immune to both of Dragapult's stab moves is also pretty important, and we can also paralyze it as well, having the speed, which is in large part what makes Dragapult good. So there's that. And then finally, we've got Glowking, who has proven time and time again why he is arguably the best pivoter, best snow setter in the game, because he's been absolutely phenomenal. But again, we got Chilly Reception, we got Slack Off, we got Toxic, and we got Flamethrower. So I was tempted to go Toxic Spikes over Toxic, but I did kind of want to pick and choose which things I poison, just because there is things I would rather paralyze or burn. So Toxic just seemed like a better idea. And then we have Flamethrower just because he does have a couple of steals that I would rather have coverage for. So yeah, slack off Toxic, Chilly Reception, and Flamethrower just to hit the steals basically. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the battle portion where we will attempt to move on to the semifinals. All right, right about now. And welcome to the battle portion of this video. We got a Dawn fan lead on our end and a Blastoise lead from his end. We're fully anticipating the Shell Smash here, which is exactly what happened. So we go ahead and set up our rocks. Yeah. So everything's going according to plan. He goes for the Liquidation, which of course we are saved by the Sturdy. We predict this, and of course we go for the Endeavor, which means, of course, that on the next move we'll be able to take him out. Now, granted, I should have went for Rapid Spin here. That way I could at least try to outspeed whatever comes in next and go for the Endeavor, but that's not what I did. But regardless, I still outspeed the Magearna, and I go for an Endeavor, which puts it at 1% as well. And at this point, Dawn Fan has put in a lot of work, so I just go ahead and let it fall. Good job, Dawn Fan. Taking out two potentially huge setup sweepers by itself, in theory, just because now Titan's able to pick it off with an Ice Shard with no problem whatsoever. And then in comes the Dragapult. I thought about going for an Ice Shard here, but I decided to go for Grimmsnarl instead, because that seemed like a safe switch. Going for the Flamethrower, I have to assume he specs. So I go for the Light Screen. And I know for a fact the Spirit Break will take it out from full. So we go ahead and just kill it straight away. He brings in Necrozma next. I go for a Reflect just to get that second screen up. And Meteor Beam will not do a whole lot. I go for a Thunder Wave and it misses, unfortunately. He goes for a Heat Wave, which does burn me, which is not great, but it is what it is. If my camera could focus, that would be really awesome. There we go. So now we go into Skeledirge, which should be able to handily take on the rest of this team. Photon Geyser is not going to do much just because we're behind Light Screen, and we ignore the special attack boost. So we're just going to go ahead and start setting up with Torch Songs. We know for a fact that the Ditto will come in and copy our boosts, but we're unaware of those boosts as well. So it really doesn't matter. And because Ditto's HP is significantly smaller than ours, we'll be doing more damage to it than it is dealing to us, so we will win that 1v1 regardless. So we go ahead and go for a Hex, which will take out the Necrozma. And then we get a little bit of Lefty's recovery as the Light Screen does wear off, but that's okay because we don't really need it at this point. The Hex actually does about 35%, which is fine because we're going to slack off. And we're kind of just trying to out-heal the damage and get us relatively healthy to take on this Dragapult, which is ultimately the game plan. And that's kind of where we're at. We go for a Hex, which does 53%. So I think we're going to go for another Slack Off here. Because at this point, it's got to be pretty close to running out of power points. So we're predicting a switch here pretty soon, which it does do right now. And we do a Slack Off. And we're at 100%, so I know we can take a Spec Shadow Ball, which takes us to about a quarter of our HP. And then a Hex will take out the Dragapult after that. And now all that's left is that Ditto. Now we're fully anticipating, because we know that Hex is going to do quite a bit here, so we go ahead and sack the Krampus here. It'll go down to a Hex. I just really didn't want anything else taking that. Next we go into Iron Bundle, which will be able to take it out with an Ice Beam, and that will be game number 1. Let's go on to game number 2. Game 2. It's the same exact lead. So I thought either he's going to switch, knowing what my game plan is, or he's just going to try to set up again, which is fine. I'm going to go straight for the Stealth Rocks, which means literally same thing as last game. Going to go for the Endeavor, bringing it down to 1 HP. And he knows that the Custap Berry is about to prog, but he goes ahead and swaps out. Interesting that Custap goes before a switch, but that's fine. We go for a Rapid Spin, learning from our mistake last game, but that's totally fine. It didn't work out for us this time, but it's A-okay. He knocks off our Light Clay, but then goes for a Thunder Wave, which does not work on us, so Spirit Break will take it out. Realistically, the Sableye wasn't really doing much this match anyway. He goes into Dragapult. I go for a Light Screen as he goes for the U-turn. And in comes Necrozma. So now I go for a Thunder Wave, which does actually land this time around, and we get the full para, so that's good news. We swap into the Skeledirge. Now that Hex is going to be full powered at this point. But it is not quite enough to take it out, leaving it at 19% as we take this Meteor Beam, which bounces right off of it, if I'm being completely honest. Light Screen's going to fade next turn, so we just go ahead and knock it out with a Torch Song, which will give us a special attack boost. And the Light Screen does wear off. In comes a Dragapult. We know that Shadow Ball might be a range here, so we go ahead and swap into the Grimmsnarl, which will take that Shadow Ball easily. He swaps back into the Magearna. We go for a Thunder Wave just to try to paralyze Dragapult, but he does switch. Now we go into Skeledirge as they set up the Shift Gear. So the Shift Gear kind of neutralizes the para, so we are still able to outspeed. And Torch Song is able to do a good chunk of damage. Now we know for a fact that the Sword Power is not going to do anything just because of the fact that there's no Calm Mind Boost, and even if there was, we'd ignore that. So Sword Power is basically not going to do a whole lot. And we know that Torch Song is going to KO on the following turn, and then we are going to give it up to full HP with the Leftovers Recovery. So that's the Magearna dealt with. And Skeledirge is looking primed and ready to just take on the rest of this team. Shadow Ball does about the same as before. Hex is able to take it out from that range. Now we know for a fact, again, once this Ditto comes in, because the Blastoise is going to be dead to Stealth Rocks on the switch, so all that's left really to deal with is this Ditto. We know that Hex has a decent roll to KO, so we're going to swap back into the Krampus. We are going to set up a Light Screen as Hex brings us down to 10%, excuse me. We're going to go for a Thunder Wave. And if it breaks through, it will take us down, but that's okay, because now we just send back in the Skeledirge. We know that Hex ain't killing us now. We go for a Slack Off, which we now outspeed the Ditto at this point. Or it's a Speed Tie, one of the two. And then we just go ahead and fire off a Hex, and that is enough for a game, as the Stealth Rocks will take out the Blastoise. So your boys, the Phoenix Primals, will be going on to the semifinals. Good game, Buffalo. Heck of a season, and we'll catch you in the semifinals. Peace out, guys.